Hey guys, BT Delta Fan 101, and today I'm doing a video on the Invert Mini versus the Etha. This is just going to be a quick video on basically a stock Etha versus a slightly upgraded Mini, just because the Mini is about $80 cheaper than the Etha. So we're going to say that the only upgrade on the Mini is the Empire Relay ASA, since it retails for about 70 bucks anyways. So that'll make it on par. Now, as you can see, this Mini actually isn't stock. It has a nano feed neck, upgraded trigger, different barrel. But I'm going to tell you from my experience, oh, and also it's a spinner cap. And I'm going to tell you from my experience what makes, I'm going to talk about if it was stock and what would be better. So first thing we're going to want to compare is the stock barrel. So the stock barrel on the Mini is about a 12-inch 691 or 692 barrel, I believe. Yeah, like I said, it's 12-inch, so it's about that long. It's not very long barrel. It's also one piece versus the Etha, which has a 14-inch, it's about a little over 14 inches, I'd say. 14-inch 693 back barrel, and it's two-piece. I say the Etha wins just because it's two-piece. When it comes to cleaning, it's a lot easier because you can break it in two, obviously, and it's also just a little bit sleeker. I don't know, I just like the shaft 4 barrels. They've always been good. That's basically what this is a shaft 4 for the E-Tech/Etha versions of markers. So I definitely say the Etha wins in that aspect. Move on to feed necks. The feed neck on the Etha, pretty much the same as any other Eclipse marker. It's really great. Doesn't have the thumb wheel, which kind of sucks, but I mean, can't complain for a sub $400 marker. It's clamping, so it's good. The Mini's feed neck, you can't tell on this because this is the nano. I find it sits up very high and it breaks easily, so I kind of think the Etha wins on the feed neck as well. If you get a nano feed neck, that definitely beats the Etha's feed neck. It works really well, but if you didn't have that and it was stock, like I'm doing this video on, then the Etha wins. Going on to the trigger. The trigger on the Mini is pretty bad. I forget what it uses. I think it's opto or something, an opto switch or some weird switch inside there. It doesn't use micro switch or anything, which is the most lovable trigger on the market by most people, I would say. The Mini doesn't have a great trigger. Instantly just going to tell you the Etha has a lot better trigger. That being said, though, the Etha's trigger is extremely stiff, and it kind of has a I don't know, it kind of has a weird way of like it activates with a micro switch and whatever. It just doesn't feel nice. It's really hard to get it tuned to be smooth and soft. It has like a lot of it feels like there's a lot of tension on it, even when you adjust it, but it's still like a nicer shape out of the box, and I like how you can actually feel you're clicking the trigger every time you press the micro switch, so it's definitely better than the Mini. The regulator, obviously the Etha wins. I mean, like, it has an actual serviceable regulator, so does the Mini, but it's a little bit more complicated. This, I mean, actually, having a regulator sometimes is more complicated because it's more things to maintain and look after, but I mean, it still wins. Obviously, it's like the same regulators that you use in the Geos, Egos, and all sorts of stuff like that, so that definitely wins in that aspect. Moving on to the ASA, the Etha has a pretty nice spinning ASA, similar to what the clones have. Nothing wrong with it. It's pretty good. And then the Mini, this is what we're saying would be upgraded and comparing to, has the Empire Relay ASA. Now, I actually like the Relay ASA better. So if you don't have a Mini with Relay ASA, it wins, obviously, because it's just great ASA, no issues, and it has a little pressure gauge on the side, which tells you your PSI. Definitely a good thing to have because you know what operating pressure you're running at, so I think the Mini wins in that aspect. But if it was a stock ASA, it sucks because it has no on-off. Next thing we'll go to is the board. Board on the Mini, turn it on with a little button right here. Turn it on, and it flashes. It's alright. It's pretty programmable, I guess. You got dwell, rate of fire, DPS, like firing mode, obviously. Then you have, I think, debounce, just stuff like that. It's pretty comparable to the Etha. I'd say that the Etha is tied in that aspect. It has a one button here. You turn it on, lights up, super bright LED. I do like that about the Etha. Although it's kind of annoying if you're in a dark situation, but the Etha is pretty similar. It's easy to program, no issues with that. So again, that's a tie. Moving on to the the bolt assembly, I'd say the Etha wins just right away because it's actually doesn't require a screw or anything to loosen. You just twist and pull it out, and it's really easy to do. It doesn't even need to be maintained that often either. Like every 10 or 8 or... Well, actually, I maintain it after every time I go out, if I was to use it, but it doesn't need to be serviced that much. It's not very complicated inside. It just has a spring and a little thingy that, I don't know, I'm not really good with complicated stuff like that, but it can take a beating, and it's a pretty good bolt system. The Mini requires you to, there's a screw here usually, I covered it in tape, but you have to loosen that and then pop the bolt system in. And then you also have to service the poppet, which is a little bit more work to get to. The Etha is a little bit more straightforward, I'd say, so it wins in that aspect. What has better grips out of the box? I actually like the feel of the Etha grips. They don't feel cheap or plasticky like everyone else says. They feel really nice, and there's no issues with them, so I like that. The Mini, though, they do have alright grips. They're wraparound, whereas the Ethas aren't. They're just panel grips, sort of. So I think the Mini wins just because they're wraparound and they're rubber, like all rubber. They feel nice. No issues with them. So they do feel a little fatter in the hands than the Etha, but it's still a nice solid feel. So yeah, the Mini does win in that aspect. I think we're coming down to the end here. How the trigger frame. Obviously the Mini has a smaller trigger frame. That's what it's designed for. It's called the Mini for a reason. There's not a lot of space to put your hands in or to wrap your hands around. That bothers me. Obviously the Etha, I think, wins in this aspect. It has a lot of trigger frame room. You can fit 3 fingers in there if you wanted to. And you also have a little bit of space here to grab the regulator. Not a lot because of the collar that comes out, but it's still not bad. You can always wrap your hand around there. It feels solid because it's smaller. You can get a good hold on it, so I like that. Oh, another thing that the Etha wins in is these user serviceable eye cover, or sorry, the eye covers. I mean, it actually has accessible eyes. You just take off the eye covers and you just clean it out if you get a break. With the Mini, you got to take apart the actual marker just to get to the eyes. Much like the axe, it's a pain in the ass. So if you ever break or chop, you're gonna kind of have to take it apart, and it's just not as user-friendly, I guess, for a starter person to have to do that all the time, and there'll probably be a lot of breaks if you're using crappy low-end paint. I guess lastly we'll talk about the feel of the shot, quietness, and smoothness. I would say the Mini wins. Once it's broken in, it feels really great. The Etha, it's loud. It's a little louder than the Mini. It's got some vibration to it for sure, but so does the Mini because it's so light. I just think the Mini has a nicer shot. This one's very broken in. Feels really smooth when you shoot it. And it has a quieter sound signature, I'd say. So the Mini definitely wins. But overall, the Etha won in just about every other aspect, so I'd say this is a better buy. For $395, you can't really go wrong. They just released a new tactical shroud for that, for the Etha, so if you want to do that and look all milsim, then by all means go with that. The Mini doesn't really have any tactical coolness to it, I guess. So yeah, if you're looking for a new marker, the Etha is definitely the way to go. Has a lot of similar qualities to the Egos and Geos, like the SL3 Reg, the trigger, just the overall design, the eye covers, they're all pretty much the same, and the feed neck, so it's just an overall great loader, or a great marker. The only thing that might bother some people is the composite parts, but I think it's nice. If this was all solid metal, it'd still be nice, but I think it's just great the way they use the composite parts. They're still durable, still tough, and I mean, they're pretty good. I guess that is one thing though that the Mini beats the Etha in, is because it's metal, all metal, and some people like that better. I mean, I actually don't care. I'd say it's a tie because they still both have great bodies, and the milling on this is a little better than the Mini. I think it's pretty plain, but it still looks nice. So I'll just show you actually what they look like side by side from the grips. This is how the Mini stacks up to the Etha, comparing the grips. Obviously the Etha is a longer marker, but that's to be expected since it's the Mini. Anyways, that's my video. Thanks for watching, guys.